if you were to run cameras in pursuit of a specific deer again, like walk me through kind of what are the types of areas that you like to focus on? How does that vary from just like, say you've got another property without a buck that you're specifically after? Like, how are you prioritizing and kind of spreading your web of cameras to target one specific buck?
One of my favorite trail camera locations is a scrape outside of a bedding area. Maybe there's this little open pocket. Does could easily bed in front of the camera, but that is a really like if I had one camera location, it's those scrapes. That was something I learned a long time ago too. When a couple different things I learned, like it was conventional wisdom at the time to think that like, oh, if you pulled most hunters at a trade show, I'm not saying like guys that have way more experience and have dedicated their life to hunting, but like if you took the average guy and said, I like to run cameras on scrapes year round, they said, well, they only use them late October and the beginning of November. That would have been conventional wisdom. But I had a bunch of cameras, so I was like, I wonder when, and you see like, oh, in velvet, they're hitting this. Oh, even when they shed their antlers, they're still hitting this. And it's, oh, he's got a, cut in his ear. It's that same deer he made it through. So like, to me, that is in a state that you can't bait, like Illinois, like that is probably one of the best locations to get the most amount of intel. Put a solar panel on that sucker and let it soak year round. And even for a specific buck, like postseason scouting, you mark on Onyx all the different scrapes, and then maybe the following year you run cameras on a lot of those scrapes, and it's like, okay, he 2 out of 3 times he hits this one and only one. So it's like that's an idea of when he's in the area. I'm not saying go sit on that scrape, but he's in the area and that's where your opportunity's at. The other one is like some of the obvious things of fence gaps if you're in farm country. Sometimes the so obvious spots where it's like, I think we often overcomplicate it. It's like, well, you have this trail, which is what the does and young bucks walk on. And then you have this faint trail. That's where the big bucks walk from. Now, in parts of the country, that may be totally accurate, but I would say probably for 80% of the country, the buck's going to walk by in the obvious spot at some point. And it's like, this camera's not telling you exactly when to be there and wait for him to walk by that trail again. It's like, when is he going to be in this area? What is the wind the following day or 2 or 3 days from now? And like, how is he likely going to be using the wind? Where are the does likely going to be bedded? Like all these different things, like that's the catalyst of allowing you to have critical thinking, to not overthink it, but just to understand like, hey, I have a chance. I have to be there. And there's a good probability he's in this square mile, or 80 or 40, depending on like what the terrain's like in the area. But that's another one. Another area that I like that is just a brutal place to hunt, and I've never had success and kind of have given up is, a scrape on the bottom. Picture multiple ridges coming down. And I walk a lot of farms, for selling land. And it's like, oftentimes, it's like, there should be a scrape down here. And you're looking around like, oh, there is, where all the scent pools down in there. Bucks feel safe. And that's a great inventory location. Are you going to go set up on that scrape? Probably not. I tried it. Yeah. I tried it. Doesn't work. Doesn't work for me anyways. So that's another, scrapes and a bottom. Great inventory location. Or like I said, scrapes on the top where there's bedding nearby. So like those are even hunting for a specific deer, but like even if you just want to get general inventory, like maybe you have an inside corner in ag field, like you don't have any food plots, but a low spot in the field that has an inside corner is like a double win there, to where they're likely going to be fitting out there at some point, and you can get a good idea of what's going on for that particular area. But like the one thing I don't think people often realize, like the food sources change so fast and so rapidly based off of the weather. So like you have a camera there and the white oaks are dropping their acorns and it's like, this place is dead. But if you had the camera 80 yards further south, for example, on that flat, you would see the deer bedded in there. So I think those are, scrapes, fence gaps, inside corners, kind of all the same locations that could be a great stand location, honestly, too. I've hung them in more sensitive areas or like on tighter on trails. Like it's been okay, but I just feel like this season, just watch a deer and be like, okay, how many times could I have gotten this picture if I had cameras in different locations? And it somewhat dependent on how much you can see where you're hunting, but there's a lot of good spots. You just got to have them out there. And there's best spots. That's our job, is to try to figure out where they're at, but it's hard to sometimes guess that. But I would start with the obvious.